7th of December 1941, Pearl Harbor. Japan attacks America. America come in the wall. Because America came in the wall on the Allies side, Hitler had to do something about it. He didn't want to fight on two fronts, so he decided to do Hitler Directive 40 on the 23rd of March 1942. This Directive 40 was to build a series of bunkers and fortifications along the coast from the top end of Spain to the top end of Norway, and eventually it was called the Atlantic Wall. After the failed attempt of the Allies attacking the coastline of France in Dieppe in 1940, and they realised the obstacles they couldn't get over, decided to do something about it. They sent raiding parties over to Europe to sneak onto the shores, to take sand samples, to measure concrete installations, to take samples of the concrete they could and bring it back over here so they could examine it and figure out how they get round these type of obstacles that Hitler has had built along the coastline of Europe. So in 1943 the Canadians built a replica of the Atlantic Wall over in a place called Hankley Common, where I'm at. Now there's still sections of it left. I want to have a look at it and I'll explain a little bit more of what happened here. And then once this wall was built, the idea was to figure out how to train troops to get round it, over it or through it. This was in preparation for Operation Overlord and Operation Neptune. And the task was left to basically one man. He was Major General Percy Hobart, the 79th Armoured Division of the Army. Now Hobart had to figure out how to how can I word it? Hobart had to figure out how to combat this wall, then put it to the Ministry of Defence to see if it was viable. So we're going to look at some of the stuff that Hobart used. So Percy Hobart was given two types of tank, a British Churchill tank, an American M4 tank, and he adapted these for different scenarios. The M4 and the Churchill tank were actually used on the D-Day landings, and there was also used in an operation called Operation Smash, which was a training run on the Dorset beaches. I think I may have, if you've seen the video I did about Operation Smash, I'll put a link somewhere in the description. You can have a look at that, about the DD tank. Duplex drive. He also put a series of chains on the front of one. As the tank went along, it would start to flail out and it would actually destroy mines and barbed wire. And then another tank was a flamethrower on the front of it. The flamethrower was to, I'm assuming, to try and obviously burn out the occupants of the bunkers on the Atlantic Wall itself. All of these unusual adaptations to these tanks, because the Percy Hobart sort of devised them, they started to be called Hobart's funnies. But they must have worked, otherwise they wouldn't use them. Found it. This is a mock-up. It's 100 metres long, or about 300 foot long. It's 3 metres high, which is about 10 foot, and 3.5 metres thick, which is about 12 foot, 13 foot. Used to be a set of gates here, metal gates, but they've gone now. So I'm assuming they've been scrapped and used after the war, and every bit of spare metal was needed after the war. They'd used that much up during the war. You can see the metal rebar, very similar to what the Germans would have used anyway. Little wires there keeping it all together. Then no doubt they would have made some kind of shuttering to pour it. When it's set, remove the shuttering. You can probably see it here if you can see it. There's lines here. This isn't just worn away, this is because the Allies were trying all sorts to try and destroy this section. So they know when the D-Day landings came what type of weapons they could use. It's quite a big breach in this wall here, of about 15 foot, 6 metres, something like that. And they used two types of weapon. One was a petard mortar. They reckon it looked like a flying dustbin. It had a very short barrel under a tank and it could fire about 80 metres, 240, 250 foot. And no doubt it would hit it, and tried to destroy this section. The other one was called the Double Onion, and it was a blast, or I should say a bomb that was placed onto a tank, placed against the wall and set off, and no doubt this is what's caused this massive break in the wall. As you may or may not know, but the Atlantic wall wasn't like this. It was a series of different fortifications, strength in depth as well, from minefields to Belgian gates to tetrahedrons, to barbed wire to mines, and then they had these massive blockhouses with massive guns, and they had things called Tobruks, which were machine gun nests and other things like that. So this, I suppose, was if they decided to attack, say, for instance, a bunker, and they could basically blow the bunker up if they wanted to get through. But I think within the day of the D-Day landings, they managed to breach it anyway. So maybe all this would have been a waste of time. But you don't know. You're uncertain. You never know until you actually get to where you're going, or what to expect, really. These concrete structures are what they call dragon's teeth. Basically, they're concrete structures, and they're an anti-tank thing that the Germans built. They were very similar to how the Germans built them. That's a big concrete block, obviously for training purposes, but I'm not exactly sure what it would be training for. I don't recognise anything to do with the Atlantic Wall, or the Siegfried Line actually, regarding that, but there must be something. There's some concrete blocks all over the place like this. There's probably something to do with regarding possible tank traps, and to figure out how they can get around them. Here's a series of concrete structures called dragon's teeth. Now they look very similar to how the Germans would have built them. I don't know if they're on a trellis frame, which the Germans did, but you see how they've got a flat head on them, what they call truncated. In other words, it's flat. It was a wooden box in the shape of that, and then the concrete was poured on top. When it was set, it was taken off, and the idea of these was to stop tanks getting over the top of them. But the Allies found quite an ingenious way, and a simple way. All they did was get an adapted tank with a shovel on front and bury these things, and then they just basically rode over the top of them with the tanks. Some more bigger dragon's teeth where the Allies built to try and combat these things, but if you look at this one, it's on its side, so they weren't quite built to how the Germans did. The thing with the Allied dragon teeth is that they're all the same size, and the Germans didn't build them like that. They built them to be a little bit small at the front to start to get higher at the back. And the idea was to, if a tank tried to get over it, they would it would basically catch on the back, and it would be trapped. And then the Germans could actually fire their weapons at it and get soft underbelly. Apparently the Ministry of Defence still own this property and this land. I think we're just allowed to use it, really. All the people around here are. I think it's down something like an ancient monument. Obviously, if you think about it, people who probably practised on this wall when they went over to Normandy may never have come back anywhere. So it's a nice tribute, and there's a plaque on the wall as well to the people that fought for us. Some died and some came back, lest we forget.